Yo, it's the KIDHYPHEN, the Kid Heights.
Hey, MJ fan, this is Fun Christ.
Hey, this is MJ Love.
And you are listening to the Moonwalker Chat Podcast.
The only place to be if you're a real Michael Jackson fan.
And you tuned in with the Moonwalkers Chat Podcast.
And this is a place to be if you're a real Michael Jackson fan.
What's going on, Moonwalkers? We are back with another great episode for you guys. I hope all is well today. Today we have a special guest here with us on the MCP, but before we bring her out, how's it going, Dove?
Everything's good. How's everybody doing?
Everything is A-OK. Everything is A-OK. I am so glad that we were able to actually get our special guest. We have Talitha Linehan, and let me just tell you guys, I can't wait to actually, but I'm pretty sure you guys have heard about her book that's currently available. It's called A Real Life Fairytale, Michael Jackson and Me. And it's something that you definitely must check out. I mean, guys, if you haven't checked it out, make sure you do. Yes. But yes, it's definitely going to be an exciting adventure once you start reading it. So make sure you get your hands on that book. Oh, man. But without further ado, let us bring out Talitha.
Yes.
Hello.
Here she is.
Hi.
What's going on, Talitha? How's it going?
All good. Good. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the MCP, the Moonwalkers Chat Podcast. It is an honor to have you here.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Oh, man. Well, where do we begin? Well, how is it going with you out there in LA? How's everything going? Because I know the pandemic is going on and everybody is just all over the place with this mess. Like, how are things? How are with you out there?
You know, things are starting to go back to normal now that most people have been vaccinated. I think mid-June is when we'll be able to go out and not wear masks anymore. So looking forward to that. Although I think it'll feel a little scary, a little strange to go in a store and not wear a mask. But, you know, it's a process and we're getting there. So really, really happy with where we are right now, because it's certainly, you know, been a trip. It's been a journey this past year and a little bit. So yeah, it's fine. You know, I think we did pretty well in LA, at least in my neighborhood. People were very good about distancing and wearing masks and following the rules. So I think we came through it okay, you know.
Same here. I made sure that I kept my hand sanitizer on me. I socially distanced as required. And I also made sure I kept a mask at all times. Sometimes I kept 2 to 3 masks on me at one time. No denying that. Just to be on the safe side in case I may have lost one. Because, you know, I can't count how many masks I've lost.
Right. And I've had dreams where, like, I go somewhere and there's a crowd of people and I realize, like, I'm not wearing a mask and I feel so vulnerable. So obviously it's like inbuilt in our psyche at this stage that, you know, the mask is absolutely essential. I think that's what's kept a lot of people safe, you know, thankfully. And, you know, I feel very fortunate. I haven't lost anyone to COVID or known anyone who's gotten ill even, or, you know, even contracted the virus. So obviously, you know, my experience is very, I won't say positive, but a very gentle one compared to a lot of people out there. And I definitely recognize that and appreciate it. And, you know, my heart goes out to anyone who was deeply impacted, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as, let me start here. So as far as one thing that I wanted to ask you, like as an author, what inspired you to actually write this book?
As an author, it's an untold story. And I think as an author, as a writer, we're all about telling stories. And this one really had never been told to that extent. I mean, of course, fans had shared their experiences of meeting Michael. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And everybody, loves hearing those stories and really appreciates it. But as far as I knew, nobody had told sort of the whole story of like where that journey begins, how it begins, why it begins. Because, a very basic thing that a lot of people don't really understand is like why you love this superstar so much that you would go to that extent of like following the tour and waiting for hours at the gates of Neverland or whatever. So it's like, well, where does that begin? And I really wanted to tell the entire story from that kind of first moment of like, really seeing Michael for the first time and then taking those first steps towards him and into his world. And then, I think one of the things that was very special about my experience and perhaps made it very suited to actually writing a book about it is that the sort of the range of the experience, like the variety of that. I didn't just know him in one context. I knew him first of all as this figure on the posters on my bedroom walls, in the music videos that I watched, in the songs that I listened to. So that's how it began. And then it went to me experiencing Michael Jackson, the superstar. So I wanted to tell that story, what that was like as like a teenage girl and just like seeing him for the first time and having that experience when he's still very much like kind of far away, but within reach now, actually within reach. And then progressing from there and like actually meeting him for the first time and then running around London and New York and LA and having all of these experiences and then becoming closer to him and spending time with him inside Neverland with other fans, going through the whole trial. And that was obviously a very dark phase for all of us. But going through that and then coming out the other side and then having this, closeness that developed in the final years and these amazing opportunities to spend time with him alone, So I really wanted to tell that whole story. And it's something I think that lived inside me for a very long time. And, I was fighting it because I wanted to and I didn't want to. Like I had a lot of fear. I had a lot of conflict about telling that story. It's terrifying to put yourself out there to that extent and to kind of like expose yourself to that sort of scrutiny and potentially scrutiny and criticism. It's obviously a very personal story. It is part of who I am. And so there's a vulnerability to that as well. And so it took me quite a long time to get to the point where the timing was right. I was ready. And I think with all forms of art and expression, like there is a time to it. It's like this door opens, that hasn't been open before and may never be open again. This door opens and it's like the timing is right. The expression is flowing. And if you don't step through that door, it closes and it may never come around again. So there was just
absolutely
this timeliness to it. Like this was the time to sit down and write that story. And it was like the stars aligned, everything I kind of tried to do around the book was effortless. That isn't to say it wasn't a ton of work because it was hundreds and hundreds of hours of work. I put so much energy and time into this, but there was an effortlessness to it as well. Like things that seemed impossible. Like I wanted to use photographs of me in newspapers from the history tour. So they were, I think this is one of the most amazing things that like worked out so easily that initially seemed impossible. So if people don't know, if you want to use photography in your book, you have to have the rights to that. You can't just like grab images from the internet or from newspapers and put them in your book. I mean, you might get away with it, but you also could get sued because someone owns the rights to those pictures. So here I was in 2020 with these newspaper articles from 1997, so 23-year-old pictures that I wanted to put in my book. And I had to, first of all, try to contact the newspapers, but guess what? Those newspapers don't exist anymore. So then I'm trying to like figure out how to get those rights and track down those photographers. And like, it worked out quite easily. I made a few attempts and then like somehow it just happened. So, there was just that kind of energy around everything I wanted for the book. Like even the color version, initially I had just released the black and white versions because Amazon wasn't offering color. And I was thinking like, God, I want the color version to exist. Like I want it to be out there, even if very few people buy it because it's so expensive. because if you self-publish, a color version is just costs a lot of money to produce. And then Amazon like emailed me when I'm thinking this, I'm thinking, oh, I want to release a color version somehow. And then I get an email from Amazon saying, hey, guess what? We're going to start offering color versions. So I was able to do that.
Nice.
So I mean, you know, it was just like everything just like aligned and like, you know, just flowed right from the beginning to the end. So I hope that answers your question.
I definitely want the deluxe version. Like I want the pictures in color.
Yeah, I mean it is beautiful. Like it is a beautiful book. It's expensive, and I apologize for that. It's just that's what it costs. You know, it costs. I mean, I make $4. You pay $50. I make $4. Everything else goes to Amazon. So yeah,
terrible.
Yeah, well, it's okay. I didn't do it for the money, so I don't really care. I'm glad that I had this opportunity. Yeah.
I know, but it's terrible. I mean, it's your. Yeah, but I'm trying to say, like, it's your story. It's you're putting yourself out there. Like Darryl and me, we do our content creation, right? And sometimes you just don't feel that appreciated. And we kind of feel you in that way, like. You're offering something that is so special to people, especially to fans, you know. And what do you get for it? Like, yeah, it's true though.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, what I get is that sense of satisfaction, and I'm in such a good place now because of doing that. Like, it's brought me some sense of peace, which I never had before when it came to Michael. I haven't had any sense of peace for over a decade, and now that I've written this book and put it out there, I have a sense of peace, even if it's just in relation to that. But you know, that is very rewarding. And then I've received so much love, and you know, connected with so many fans. People have reached out to me. They've basically told me their life story when it comes to him, you know, and how they discovered him, how he influenced their lives, and maybe even saved their lives in some cases. So people have shared their journeys, and honestly, like, that is more valuable to me than any amount of money ever could be. So I can't complain, but I know what you mean. And I know, especially as anyone in the arts, anyone who's like what you guys do, as a writer or a photographer or anything, like, no one gets paid enough anymore, you know? Honestly, that's
true.
It is. It's all under, I mean, you can blame the internet, and it's true. The internet, it's wonderful, and it's given us opportunities. It's the reason we're able to do this right now. And at the same time, it's definitely devalued the arts in a big way, you know? So,
yeah,
there's that. It's a double-sided coin, you know?
It sure is.
Yeah. But I appreciate what you do. And I'm sure a lot of fans do.
Oh yeah, like
we're getting there.
We have a great amount of people that show us support, and we do appreciate everything that they do for us. They share our podcast, they share our show, and we love the fact that they do that. I mean, it's amazing. And it's also rewarding that when you actually are putting out information, it's rewarding to know that you're sharing with other people who love and care about MJ just as much as you do.
Exactly.
And when you learn something new, it's like, oh God, really? This happened with MJ? And it's just like, you know, you want to share with other fans who may not have known, or, you know, and that's the way it is for us, you know, and that's what we do.
Yeah. Exactly.
We love it. We love it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and we created like this little family, like our own little Moonwalker family, because we are the only ones who understand each other. Like, if people from the outside view us, they call us weird, they call us crazy, they call us a bunch of names.
Yeah. No, it's true. Yeah, I know that's something I've dealt with, like every fan my entire life. Like, I was bullied at school, you know, and they say teased, but really it's bullying, you know, because I love Darryl. Especially after the allegations came out. I was 15 at that time, and that just like, oh God, that made me such a target, you know? And then even like as an adult, like I've had adults say really harsh things about him in front of me because they know I love him. You know, you'd think it would be the opposite. Like, even if you thought something negative about someone, if their relative or friend was in the room, you wouldn't say it, like, out of respect for them. And for some reason with Michael, it's the opposite. And I've never understood that. Like, people feel compelled to just say nasty things about him, you know, to make so-called jokes that are just so lame and like have been told a million times and are not funny. But they do that to you. It's like, it's like loving him brought this cruel streak out in other people. And like his presence here seemed to bring out a lot of cruelty in people, in the media especially. And that's something I'll never understand. And that's why we need each other so much, you know. We need our little family because we're the only ones who understand and understand what we've all gone through, because we've all gone through that. I'm sure when you guys tell people like, oh, I do a Michael Jackson podcast, you get all of the same, oh, really, why? You know, and like calling him names and saying negative things about him, right?
I get that a lot, constantly.
I can imagine.
We're called names. We're called names like every single time. Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, the I don't want to say it that way, but let's say the special kind of people claiming all kinds of stuff, and the crazy stories that we get, people inboxing Darryl, inboxing me.
Really?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Wow. Yeah, I'm so sorry for you guys.
It's okay.
Yeah, it gets so messy when it comes to, especially when we speak about the innocence of Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
It so pisses people off. And to show that I believe his innocence, I went and got a tattoo on the back of my hand.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Wow, so it's the MJ symbol with his figure in there? That's really unique. That's amazing. I've never seen anything like that.
The mess that I get when I travel in public wearing an MJ t-shirt, and then I have to get on the subway or something, and I, you know, have to hold on to the pole or something, and they see the back of my hand. All of a sudden, that MJ conversation comes up, and I'm like, oh, you weren't just thinking about him 5 seconds ago. Why say anything about him now because you see me with the tattoo and you see me with MJ shirt on or something? It happens so much. It's annoying.
Wow. I'm sorry. That's horrible. Yeah.
It's annoying.
Yeah. People can be so rude.
But Talitha, I'll be honest, I'm one of the people who, if they, you know, are in my circumference and I know that they're obviously speaking about it because of me, I'll go, and what about Michael? I'll turn.
Good for you. Good for you.
I was like, and what about Michael?
Say something else.
Yeah.
Something else.
Good for you.
No, it's not even to be gutsy, but you want to know what it is? It's just because I know that they're sparking it up because they've seen something I had on. And that I'm like, no, this shouldn't affect you in any way. I don't care what you believe. I know opposite of what you know. Yeah. They didn't do any research to know what we know.
Absolutely no research. It's based on like tabloid garbage, you know.
All hearsay.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah. I feel you.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Oh man. My phone been powered off.
Did you have another question, Darryl, before we get started with the viewers?
Let me ask. There was one question I wanted to know. And this, you're probably gonna be like, oh, I've been asked this a billion times before, but I'll answer it again.
That's okay.
But, during your visit to Neverland, what was the experience like just walking up to the gates and entering the gates there? I mean, like, what was the atmosphere like, the experience?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So there's a whole chapter in the book about that. It's called Inside Neverland. And like, honestly, I mean, first you have the exterior gates, and they don't look like anything that special. Like, they're just, these 2 brown gates, and that's where you would wait for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And so, so the first time I went through those gates was in February 2003 with 4 other friends. And just entering those gates was absolutely surreal. But the even more amazing experience was reaching the Golden Gates, which are really far inside. So you have, you go through the outside, like, brown gates that give no indication that this is Neverland. Like, it just looks like another ranch property. So you enter those, and then you drive along, like, this really long passage, and then you park your car, and then you walk over to the famous, like, Neverland gates. I mean, I never expected to see those gates in real life, ever. Like, Neverland was somewhere that, at that point, and it's maybe difficult to understand now, how off limits Neverland was. Like that was Michael's sacred space. It certainly wasn't anywhere fans were allowed entry. It was exclusively for like family members, close friends, and then the busloads of sick children that he would invite. And that was it. No one else got into Neverland as far as we knew. And so to be a fan actually going into that sacred space, I mean, I cried when I got to those gates, and this man, Joe, who was the manager of Neverland at the time, he, you know, had the gates open for us, and walking through those gates, it was like walking into fairyland. You know, it was like just so like you're walking into a dream, you're walking into a storybook. You're going somewhere you never expected to be able to go in your life. It's heaven. Like, it's how people think of, I don't know, some kind of utopia that doesn't even like exist in the real world. And you're walking into it. I mean, how can you even begin to describe that feeling? It was just absolute like joy and privilege, and yeah, amazing. Amazing. No, I love that question. I haven't been asked that question before.
Oh man!
Is it the way people describe it in books though, like or in interviews, like the music? You would hear the music playing, and the carousel would start running, and the fountains will jump up, and the lights would turn on, and stuff like that. Is it really like that? Wow!
It is like this tinkling, magical, shimmering paradise. It is. It was a fairyland, and you know, I hope we get to see that again. I hope it's rebuilt. I mean, there's some hope now that that's actually going to happen. So hopefully to some extent, of course, it'll never be what it was, because that was infused with Michael's heart and soul. You know, he envisioned that and had the whole thing built from scratch. But still, if we could even have a replica of that for fans to experience, I think that would be something very valuable. That would be a treasure. So fingers
I agree.
crossed, you know. Yeah,
I know. Yeah. Fingers crossed that something good comes out of.
I mean, it's miles better than.
Purchase.
Yeah, I hope so. It's like, you think Disneyland or whatever. Disneyland's nothing, you know, compared to nothing.
Like that's nothing. Neverland is better.
Like, that's just so commercial and like whatever, you know. No, Neverland was heaven on earth.
Oh man, I can imagine. 'Cause I've never gotten to experience that, and I said, being that I'm from the 80s generation, I've never gotten to experience MJ live in person or getting to go to Neverland or anything like that. So anytime when I've actually gotten to speak to anyone who's been there, it's just like, what was it like? You know, just the excitement, because anytime I see the ranch, I just, you know, I get lit up on the inside, and I just feel like, wow, I really wish that I could have been there and just seen what the atmosphere was like. Because you know, MJ's aura is all over that place.
Exactly.
And I can just imagine.
Yeah, exactly. And like, people know kind of the overview of it, you know, like, okay, there was that theme park and the zoo and the movie theater and the home and the fountains. But it's like, when you're there, you're also noticing the really intricate personal details. And that, like, that's what adds to the whole experience as well, you know? So you're down in it, like seeing all of the details. And I talk about some of that in the book, like just the little fairy figurines, and he had like a cuckoo clock in his living room, and this like model of a train set, and you know, it's so funny, like, I don't know why, but when I was growing up, like a teenager, I always imagined his dining room as like this banquet hall, something really like austere and grand. There's a scene in one of the Batman movies where like Batman is sitting at the head of this really long table, and then his love interest is on the other end, and like eventually they realize that's really impersonal, and they move to like a more intimate setting. But for some reason that like stuck in my head, and I was like, oh, that's how dining rooms in rich people's homes look like. So obviously, like Michael's house, he has a dining room like that. And I was like, it's one of these funny notions that just like was based on nothing except like, oh, rich people, like great mansions have like things like this, you know, so he's gonna have, that's how I imagined his dining room. And then when I actually went inside for the first time, and it's like, oh, okay, no, like definitely not. Like his home was so warm and inviting and cozy, and his dining room was like a normal size like round table with little cozy chairs, and I was like, oh, why did I have this idea? Like, it wasn't even anything that Michael would like, but it just stuck in my head. So
I remember that scene you're talking about where the love interest was yelling up the table, "Can you please pass the sword?"
Yes, that's it. And why when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's what Michael's dining room is. Yeah, definitely. Because it's so funny. It's so odd. Like, I would have that idea. And I mean, but you have to understand, there were no pictures from inside Neverland. There was the Oprah interview, whatever. But like, that allowed us to like see inside Neverland for the first time. And then there was Adrian Grant's article, which might have come before that actually, but Adrian Grant was this guy who had a fanzine, a very successful fanzine called Off the Wall in Britain, and he got invited to go inside Neverland and spend a day with Michael and was allowed to take a few photographs. So I just remember like I think they were the first images I ever saw from inside Neverland. Like, that's how people don't really understand that now. It's like we didn't even know what it looked like, except for these few images that were there for like super famous because they were so rare. So
right.
There was very little from inside Neverland for all those years. So whatever ideas you had, until if you got the opportunity to go in there and see like the reality of it.
There was another question that I wanted to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as a friend of MJ's, what kind of advice that he would have given you as a friend that you've carried with you up to current day?
Oh wow, advice. Well, I mean, it's kind of everything. Like, I absorbed from being a fan right from when I was a kid. It's all the messages he puts out. I mean, for me, he's like this great prophet because he not preached like in your face, this is what you should think, but through his music and his poetry and everything he wrote, everything he said, everything he shared publicly, there was this theme of a message, which was one of love and peace and equality and harmony. So I think all of that like shaped me as a person, and not that I wasn't getting those messages from other people around me, but of course, because I adored Michael, everything he said was, golden.
The gospel. It was the gospel.
You know what I mean? If he said it, it was like, oh, okay, that's how we should live, and that's how we should be. So he definitely shaped me because I discovered him at a very formative time in my life. Although I was a fan before I saw Moonwalker at 13, but there is this like moment I see Moonwalker for the first time, and I'm just like, like I see him for the first time, and that's when I kind of went from being like a fan to a mega fan. So he was already like influencing me. He was already part of my life before that, but that's when he really became a huge part of my life, and that is like such a formative time. It's kind of like you're on that bridge between childhood and adulthood. So he really like shaped me as I grew into an adult. And then when I got to know him, there's something, and I've said it in another interview, so sorry for repeating myself, but he wrote,
totally okay.
He wrote in one of the letters it was actually to me and a couple of other fans, he wrote to always have peace of mind and peace of heart. And for some reason, like, that has just kind of inscribed itself in my heart, more so after losing him than while he was still here, because I didn't really understand the depth of that message, because I'd probably always had pretty much peace of mind and heart and taken that for granted. And when I lost him, I lost that sense of inner peace. It was like a very dark experience, obviously very traumatic, soul shattering, life altering, all of these things. And so I didn't have a sense of peace about losing him because of how it happened. First the depth of the love, losing someone that you love that much is such a central role in your life is obviously traumatic in some way. And then it was the way it happened. Like he didn't just pass from natural causes. It wasn't an illness. It wasn't an accident. Someone killed him. Someone took his life. So there's just so much around that. And then living in this world with all the lies about him, and everything is just compounding for it to be a very traumatic experience, dark experience. And so I lost that sense of peace. And so that message became more important to me afterwards. And I'm still, I think, trying to find that sense of peace to the extent I had it before. So that's definitely something. And then there's a message I share, and I don't know why I'm thinking of all the written stuff, but like there's a little note I share in my book when he says, never stop being as loving as you are. And I think like when you go through something like that, you're almost afraid to love again, you know, to that extent, because you understand that with love, there's always the potential of loss. And now I know how it feels to lose someone like I love more than life, you know? So you can have almost fear around loving. So I think that's an important message. But honestly, everything he said, like, if, you know, everything he said, he talked a lot about spirituality as well. And I definitely, again, like after losing him, I didn't really believe in anything. I thought this was just such a cold world. And it's kind of like you kind of go back to eventually to the conversations you had with him and thought, well, he'd been through the greatest trauma you could ever imagine. And he still had faith and he still had hope and belief. And so, you know, I'm still learning from him. Basically, he's still shaping me, I feel like. Yeah, and I think he always will. He's a part of me, so.
Wow.
That's a good answer.
I'm speechless.
Oh,
I'm like, wow.
Thank you.
I have one more question for you.
Sure. They're good questions.
In 2009, what was MJ like during the This Is It era of your friendship? Did you notice any changes in him that any other fans may not have noticed?
I wouldn't say I noticed changes necessarily until the last weeks. So, you know, during 2009, I mean, it was obviously a different phase, like, right? So I was around him a lot in 07 and 08 and 09. And 08 was a very special time for me in Vegas. So there was a couple of months, the last few months that he lived there, where I was seeing him like every other day. You know, we just seemed to become closer. Like, you know, that's when he called me for the first time and invited me to the movies with him. And I had a lot of time with him and a lot of really special experiences. And I thought that was a very peaceful time for him. I felt there was a difference between 07 and 08 in terms of his energy. I felt intuitively like he was at least healing a little bit from the trauma of the trial, which was obviously very fresh still at that time. He seemed to be more at peace in 08 and to just be very content in his life and in his role as a father, which was his focus then during those months, you know, and always it was his focus, number one priority, but very much like that's what he was living day in, day out, was just being a dad, being with his children, and then also connecting in a big way with anyone who came to the home at that point, like, you know, not only for myself, but from friends who were also followers from Europe who'd been around Michael, you know, a lot over the years. In various situations, like on tour, at Neverland, at the trial, and a few of them came in 08, and they said to me, like, wow, this is like they all said, this is the most amazing time around Michael. I've never experienced anything like this. It's so, like, he's giving us so much time. It's so intimate, it's so personal. So that time was really special, and I felt like he had a lot of, you know, just peace and contentment. And then LA, like, he moved to LA late October. So you could call that like the This Is It phase that began then when he moved to LA. And that was a very different vibe because it's LA. So like he can't like sneeze without a paparazzi taking a picture, you know?
That's true.
Like every time he steps out, there's paparazzi there, there are autograph hunters. It's crazy, it's hectic. Like, and then, you know, the tour announcement came in March, and then it's even more hectic and there's more focus on him. And it's a different vibe, but that's understandable, like, because he's getting ready to go on tour. So now he's not just reconnecting with those few fans who come by his house. He's starting his reconnection with the world, you know, and the population of fans out there, you know, and saying, okay, come and see me perform. And so, you know, it was a different kind of vibe and a different kind of Michael in that sense, you know, and you could feel that, and you could feel that spotlight on him, if you like, which hadn't been present in 07 and 08 to that extent. So in that way it was different, but I didn't, and I know my friends didn't notice any change per se, like in him. Like we didn't see that he was stressed out or unhappy until the final weeks, which is of course the story I've shared, and I shared in my book as well, that kind of deterioration right towards the end. And then it became blatantly obvious. And I mean, obviously that didn't just happen then. It was probably something he was living with for a number of weeks prior to that, but didn't reveal to us, you know. So, and I think that's very Michael. He wasn't, there was nothing negative about him. It's like, in a way, I feel like, oh, he should have been complaining more, you know, but that's just not him. Like, he should have been telling us, like, I'm not happy. But he was such a positive person, and he always wanted to, like, project that positivity. So I think it took a lot for him to share anything negative. So when he did, we listened, you know, we knew that's serious. If he's sharing something that he's not happy with, like, he's really not happy with it.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but you shared that on the, I'm sorry, Darryl.
No, it's okay.
You shared that on the MJ book club that you guys were actually like I'm not sure if it was in a studio, or that it was where he actually, you know, told you guys like, I'm really not happy about this, and it was very personal. It was very intimate.
Yeah, that's the first we knew that he wasn't happy, you know. So that was May 29th, 2009. And I can speak for certainly my friends who were there, because we've discussed this, and like up until that point, none of us had any idea that anything was off, you know. And then suddenly he's confiding in us that he's not happy with the tour schedule. He didn't know that the arena was fully seated, which is less of a concern because that could just be like a lack of communication. But the fact that he wasn't in control of the schedule, like that was really worrying. And it was the words he said, but it was also like, you know, you're there intuitively as well, and you're thinking like, you know, what afterwards, like reflecting on it and going, well, why wasn't he the one to dictate the schedule? Like, why, how has it come to this? And what kind of atmosphere is there around him? And so you start to ask a lot of questions. And, you know, from there, you know, things went from bad to worse over those weeks to come, you know, and became very worrying. And at that point, we had less contact with him than we'd had all year. And so it became very difficult for us to do anything about it. And we were trying to help, but it felt like a very difficult situation for sure.
Yeah,
so
frustrating as well.
Very frustrating. Yeah, absolutely. You know, after having all of this time with him, to the point where there'd be silences because we wouldn't know what to ask him or what to say. And like, you know, you're thinking of topics to keep him longer, whatever. So you're just like filling space, you know, filling time, and like talking about silly things sometimes and joking around or whatever we were doing. And now we had something like something actually really wrong and something really important to address, and we didn't have those opportunities to talk to him the way we'd had for months, you know.
No, but you were, you know, you are like, when I heard you say that you were like telling Michael, look, you are in charge still. You can't forget that. Like, without you, there's nothing happening. Yeah. And I was like, wow, he really needed that, because he kind of like lost it a little bit, like, you know, the control.
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, his confidence was shattered because of going through the trial and feeling like the whole world was judging him. And just to feel that attacked and judged, I mean, obviously that eats away at your soul, it eats away at your confidence. So he was beaten down by then. So this wasn't the Michael of the 80s or, you know, the early 90s. Like, this was a man fresh from the trauma of that and carrying the weight of that. And the fear, I mean, I heard after, I think it might have been from Karen Faye saying like, either she felt it or he told her that he was afraid that he would go out on stage and get booed because he'd felt all of this judgment from the world and all of this negativity. Wow. I hope I have that right. I know I heard it from, in all of the blur of years after, like someone saying this, that's how he felt. That's what he was afraid of, you know. And that breaks my heart. It's horrible, but that's what he was carrying. So it made him very easy. It made him very vulnerable and made it easy for people to take advantage of that vulnerability, you know, and just take control and have their own ego and arrogance come first, actually, and not him.
Yeah.
Wow, I could imagine though, because around that time, it seemed like that was a lot of pressure on Michael.
Yeah,
it really did. You can see it.
Yeah,
and you can tell that he was putting his all into something that he really didn't want to fully do in the first place. I don't know. Maybe that's just me as my personal opinion.
No, I think you're right.
During that time, I don't think he was really up to it. He wanted to make his fans happy, but I don't think at the same time he wanted to actually tour, because he did say himself, I don't like to tour.
Yeah. He did. You're right. And I don't know how much. I've always kind of thought, I think he wanted to tour, but not to that extent, and that like it kind of went out of control. Like he wanted to do 5 concerts or 10 concerts. He didn't want to do 50 concerts, but the whole thing just, ballooned and got away from him, actually, because of these other people with their self-interests, just using him as a commodity. But yeah, I think he wanted to perform and go back on stage, but not like that. Not like that.
Right.
I don't think under those conditions, no.
No, definitely not, no. And he would have wanted to be in control, because he's an artist. You need that control as an artist, He wants it to be his show, under his terms, and that's just not what was happening. He wasn't the one dictating the terms,
We've seen, especially due to a lot of the documents that's popped up since 2009 regarding This Is It and everything, we've seen so many weird inklings of forgery and things of people signing documents for MJ. And then we were all doing signature comparisons at one time, where look at MJ's signature, look at this signature here. This is not the same signature. Like we was literally scrambling, proving that this was not MJ that signed any of that stuff. Yeah,
I've seen a lot of fake signatures. Not necessarily on documents, but on memorabilia. There's a lot of fakes. There is a lot of fakes. Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
And that's what's so unfortunate, and the what breaks my heart the most is that Michael knew it. Like, he was such a target for everyone. He really thought that people saw him like a machine, and they did at a certain point. Not his fans, of course. The people outside.
Yeah.
And that's heartbreaking.
I know.
It really is.
Yeah. And it's still heartbreaking.
It is.
I know.
It really is.
Yeah.
Like, it still angers me that one of the most sweetest, kindest, honorable people, whether I knew him personally or not, I feel like I did.
Yeah.
He makes you feel that way.
Yeah.
The way he was used and abused, and it's just horrible the way people really did him.
I know. And someone who never hurt anyone. Like, he didn't even say anything bad about the really evil people who came into his life. He never even talked badly about like the Chandlers or Tom Sneddon or these people who had wronged him in such a vile way, and yet people just say the worst things possible about him. It's so unfair. It's so imbalanced, It's just this really very kind, gentle soul who wouldn't hurt a fly.
It's all about the money, though. We've always said that it was always about the money, because anything tied to MJ's name, whether good or bad, it's going to serve people in the sense of dollars. Yeah. And it's horrible that this is what they've boiled him down to, was just a story so they can earn the almighty dollar. Exactly.
People lose their minds. They lose their way entirely when it comes to money. And that's something I didn't understand until, kind of saw what was happening around him. And how greedy people could be and how corrupt. It's really shocking. It's really, they'll literally sell their souls to the devil. I don't know. I don't know how these people live with themselves. I don't know how they live with themselves, or face the, imminency of passing on. Even if you're an atheist, you've got to have a little bit of what if, what if you have to in some way pay for the things that you've done in this lifetime? Just what if? Exactly. Even if the most hardcore atheists, which I assume all these people must be, they must be it's all about just being here and getting as much as you can, however you need to get it. It's a dog eat dog world or whatever. They've got to have that mindset to not care about the morality of what they're doing and the energy they're putting out there and the hurt that they're causing. just the darkness of that. They obviously don't care, so they don't think that there's ever going to be any consequences for them. And maybe there won't be. Like, I don't know. Maybe there won't be. But you gotta have a little bit. You gotta have a little bit of fear.
The karma train started, Talitha.
Right?
Yes.
I hope so. I hope it
started. Trust me.
Yeah. Because I just don't know. I don't know how they just go on and live their lives day in, day out. Either. I don't know. I don't. How do they sleep at night? How do they look themselves in the mirror? And these are people who knew him in real life.
I know.
They're not people who grew up thinking the tabloid stories are true, that he's some kind of monster or manipulator or whatever, and then they turn on him. Like, because, whatever, right? If they really believed he was evil. Like, they actually knew him in real life. Like, they know his soul. They know his heart.
That's crazy.
So how can they do that and live with themselves? Like, I don't know. I just don't understand it.
I agree with you.
Yeah. Even for no other reason, like, even if they don't care that they're being evil, but for no other reason other than, like, a fear of just karma of this coming back in you. Because how can any happiness, even if, like, Wade Robson or whatever won $1 billion, like, how could you get any joy from that money? Look what you did to get that money. Oh, you sold your soul to the devil. Like, you did. Seriously. You sold your soul. You sold your soul. God, how can it be worth it?
It's not worth it.
No. It must be to them in their mind. I don't know. As much as we can understand that.
Talitha, I don't get how anybody feels that money can cure any sort of pain, because it really does not. Because some of the richest people in the world are the unhappiest.
Yeah, like, how many wealthy people have we lost to suicide, which is a complete tragedy, but, like, these people are so unhappy. They have all the money in the world, all the fame you could dream of, but they're miserable. So, it shows, money doesn't buy you happiness. It doesn't cure depression or it doesn't take away trauma. It cannot, in most cases, sustain the life of your most loved, your most beloved. It doesn't stop death. It doesn't stop grief. Like, if I think about the top 100 most joyful and most sorrowful moments of my life, money couldn't have altered them. Money couldn't have made them more, and money can't, like, create that joy again. It wasn't something I bought and paid for, and I think anyone can agree with that, like, it can't buy you love, it really can.
Seriously.
It can buy you gold diggers, but not love.
For real.
Right.
Oh, man. Oh, we have some questions from a few questions from our viewers that we'd like to read off to you.
Sure. I'm just going to pour myself more water. Hang on.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay.
You know what? I might as well do the same. I'll join you.
Yeah.
I'll join you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right, we're back.
You ready, homie?
We're ready.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, so Talitha, here goes your first question from Andy. And she says, what's the most memorable thing Michael ever said to you?
Oh no, questions like that, they're such good questions. It's so hard to answer because it's really hard to pick one thing or to ever speak in terms of superlatives when you're talking about, like, your experience of a human being, and I think that's something everyone can relate to. If they were asked that question about anyone in their lives who they love, they're probably like, how can you pick one thing they said? So again, it was so many things. Some things I will always keep between Michael and me because they're so precious to me. And I feel like to share them would be sort of to devalue them. Because as much as you can say the words, you can quote the words, but it's almost impossible to convey the whole energy of that moment and the context and the emotion and the feeling. So it's, it's never just the words alone that are the thing. It's the entire experience. I will say one of the most, memorable things he ever said to me, which I do share in the book, although he said it a couple of times, but it was the first time he said it. was when he called me for the very first time in September 2008. And he, at one point, told me that he thought me going to him and the conversation we were having that night, it was all written in the stars. He said that another time later, he kind of reiterated that same idea, that he just felt like I was meant to go to him. I mean, even though I'm saying that, I feel very touched, and like it was such a flattering thing for him to say to me. I mean, it was so touching, and it meant so much, because I had felt that way, especially in those like recent years at that point, especially 2007. I started to feel like this was like, I need to just embrace this, because my whole life, like I had, my whole adult life, I'd followed Michael here, there, and everywhere, and gone to all these concerts, award shows, like waited at his hotels for hours and hours and hours, same with Everland, and I had a lot of people in my life questioning me over this and questioning my decisions and telling me they didn't get it, that it didn't make any sense, that I was wasting my time and money, and it was silly. And so, you do absorb all of that criticism and that questioning, and you start to question yourself and think like, am I crazy? Like, is there something wrong with me? All these people are right and I'm wrong? Because there's a lot of people telling me the same thing, like, should I listen? So you do question it, because it's so unconventional. People didn't understand it because it's not comparative to anything anyone else I knew was doing. I don't think it's comparative to anything. So it just didn't make sense to people. And so I did question it like many times over the years. I still did it. And of course, when you're in it and you're surrounded by other people who do it, it seems more normal. But then you go back to your real life, you share your stories, and you have certain people going, why, what are you doing? Like, what's the end goal here? It's like, there is no end goal. This is just like, this is joy and love. And anyway, you absorb all of that, you question yourself. And then in 2007, I started to really have that sense of like, just embrace it. Like, this path is open to me. Like, just forget what other people say or what other people would think, or that they wouldn't get it, or that it's not normal or conventional. It's like, just be here, embrace it. And I felt like this is something I'm gifted by, like, the universe. This is kind of my destiny. And when I say destiny, I don't mean fate. I don't mean like you don't have a choice. I don't believe that like we come here and there's a script and we just follow that script and then we die. I think we have choice, and what I mean by destiny is that there are certain paths open to us and certain paths that are not open to us. But of the ones that are open to us, we have a choice of which to take. Like, I didn't have to go follow Michael, and I talk about in my book this one like very important decision that I made, which was deciding whether to take a more conventional path. It was when I lived in Munich, just 2005, and I was trying to decide whether to like go move to LA where I didn't know anybody. I'd have to build my own career as a freelancer, and like find friends and like build a life there, versus staying in Munich where I had a great job, I had a circle of friends, like I had security. That was the more conventional path. And like, I could have taken that path. I still would have lost Michael. I still would have been devastated, but perhaps it wouldn't have been quite as intensely difficult, as taking that other path. At the same time, that other path brought me to so much joy and love. So, I feel like we have choice, but there are paths open to us that are destined to be open to us. And that was one that was open to me. And I took that path and I was on it, and I was like, okay, I just need to embrace this and be here. And there was such a sense of destiny to being around Michael. For me, I felt like this is where I belonged. This is where I was meant to be. But I felt that in my little head. I never expected him to think that, or for him. So hearing those words coming from his mouth unprovoked, it's not like I suggested it to him and he was like, oh yeah. It was like absolutely unprovoked. He just started to talk about this. And like I said, he did it again at another period, another point, like later in 2009. He repeated that same idea. So it was something he really like seemed to strongly believe as well. Like, well, you were meant to come to me, this was all meant to be. So you're here for a reason, And I mean, yeah, I can't think of many things more flattering and touching than that. So that's definitely a very memorable thing.
How did you do it though without melting? I would be like, oh my god.
I was a puddle on the floor. Okay, I was melting all over the place. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was internally dying, like dying in the best way possible, you know. But yeah, sometimes I mean I try to describe that. It's so hard to describe that feeling of like I literally can't take it if you say one more word, like I'm going to die, you know, like just the force sometimes of that love and just the words he would say are like, why do you stop? You know, you can't say that to me because I'm going to drop, you know. Like, he was so kind. I mean, just, you know, you're talking about the purest, most tender heart on the planet ever, you know, and so to have that kind of directed at you, it was overwhelming, you know, that love and
too much,
that tenderness, yeah.
I can imagine.
And kindness, he's so kind. Yeah, he knew how to make a girl feel good, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so we have another one from laying back in his tenderness. What was it like
I
to
like
hug
that
Michael?
name.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The screen names of Instagram.
I like that name.
Following that conversation, yeah.
Yeah. What was it like to hug him?
To hug him?
Yes.
Oh, that's difficult too, because it's such an ethereal experience, and you know, it's so difficult to speak in tangible terms about something so intangible and incomparable. I know that, you know, as fans, we often reach for these words like heavenly, angel, you know, words that are traditionally associated with religion, and we sometimes get in trouble for that. Like, oh, you're like turning him into a deity or a god, or you sound like, you know, you're in a cult or something, or some people don't like that. I know that some people have told me like they love my book, but they don't like when I use language like that because it kind of dehumanizes him, which I think is a very fair criticism. Like I respect that as an opinion, but it's like, I'm sorry, but like, I don't know other words to use to describe that experience of his energy and his aura and of being with him. So I can't pretend that aspect of my love and my relationship with him and of him didn't exist, you know. So I need some words, and I don't have other words. I don't have better words to describe like what it was to be with them, you know, to have that love directed at you. And so I'm going to say heavenly, because that's what it was like to hug him, to be held by him. You just felt like completely wrapped up and enveloped in this pure energy and love, and, you know, whatever words you want to describe that as, I don't know. I think Michael just was. He carried that. And I have people I love, obviously, and I'm blessed to know beautiful souls, very intuitive, like gorgeous people, and obviously hugging any of them is wonderful. But Michael, it was just that little bit more, and it's like he was just that little bit more connected than the rest of us to something very pure, and he channeled that. And he channeled that through his music. We all have felt that, you know. You don't have to hug him to feel that. Of course, you know, that was like the ultimate experience of it. But if you just listen to Earth Song or Heal the World or Childhood or any of these more like gentle, like soft, sentimental songs, like you feel that essence and you feel that purity. So being hugged by him and being enveloped by that is probably what any fan would imagine it to be, times 1,000 million billion, you know, like, yeah. Yeah, so it's like I couldn't explain that to a non-fan who doesn't understand like that essence of who he is. But I think as fans, we all get that to a certain extent, or to a large extent in many cases. So we can all imagine it's just, you know, what that would be like. And just wow. The most joyful experience of my entire life was being held by Michael. And although I haven't experienced everything there is to experience as a human, I can't imagine that there's anything that would bring me more joy or bliss or that heavenly feeling than being held by him. Like I said it before, I feel like I could live 8,000 lifetimes and never experienced that kind of heaven on earth as I did with him.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And you said it in your other interview as well, like you were surprised when you were watching your pictures, like, why are my feet on the ground when I'm feeling like I'm floating?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And and if you're at all interested in New Age spirituality, there's a lot of talk about like energy, and of course that's what we all are. We're all energy beings, and how when you're down or low and your energy is vibrating at this slower level, and then when you're uplifted, like it's kind of like speeding. Like I could actually feel that when I was with him or being held by him. Like it was like everything was just vibrating at a higher level. You honestly felt like uplifted and off the ground, out of this world. Like another dimension, a higher dimension. Yeah.
That's really amazing. Okay, so we have from Meltzer, what's one funny memory you had with MJ?
Okay, yeah, there's lots of funny memories. Some of them I share in my book, like when we went to the movies and watched Fly Me to the Moon, which is, I guess it was a funny movie because he laughed a lot. He laughed a lot. And so he had a great sense of humor. Sometimes he would tease me and then laugh, and like things would just tickle him, like random things would tickle him and he would laugh and laugh. And I've heard people say who read my book also, they might have said like there was a poignancy to it. I think there is a sadness in the book, and throughout the story, probably because there was always a sadness with loving Michael. There still is, because of all the lies about him. So, that was something you carried, that weight, and like certainly during the trial. And as much as I feel when I read the book that when I wrote the book, that I transcended this moment and was able to actually like transform and be the 13-year-old me again when I was writing about that, or the 20-year-old me following the history tour or whatever. Like I felt like I was like back in those moments. It's still the inescapable fact that I'm writing it from the perspective of now where I've lost him. So I think there's a sort of poignancy all through my story, and like that's valid. But at the same time, I want to emphasize, which I probably don't enough in the book, is like there was a lot of laughter too. He was a funny guy. He liked to laugh. He had a great sense of humor. I remember when we were at Neverland, when we spent a day with him there in September 2003, and we were in his like private quarters, and he was joking around so much, and like he picked up this picture of this older lady in a bathing suit, a black and white random picture. He had so much random stuff in there, and he was like, "Oh look, it's my girlfriend," and like we were all like, "What?" and like laughing. So he would like do goofy things and silly things and joke around, and like I said, tease me like very gently. I mean, sometimes he would just see me and start laughing, and like one time I was like, "What are you laughing at?" And he was like, you make me so happy, and like, I know. So he would laugh a lot, and like there was a lot of laughter, a lot of joy. I remember one night in late 2008, so in that really magical period, and there was like a bunch of us. There was like 7 or 8 of us there. It was like one of the busiest times seeing him. And there was like a lady who lived there who followed for years, and her 2 adult children, and then some followers from Europe, and obviously I was there as well. And we were all like, we had all this like crazy vibrant like energy, and like the younger fans, the adult children's lady, they were so excited, and they were getting like stuff autographed. And then there was me and like 2 girls who were just like, "Oh Michael," like just being all like girly and swoony, and like then there was this guy who was like giving him merch that he really loved, and Michael was just like at one point just sitting there, and like he put his hands together, and he was like, "I just feel all the joy, the bliss. There's so much bliss tonight," and he was so happy in that moment. And I think that the way he dealt with trauma to some extent was that he really surrounded himself as much as he could with positive energy, and he was able to just be in that moment and absorb the energy around him, like absorb the joy and the laughter and the love. And of course with his children, he joked around a lot. I mean, they were a constant source of joy, love, comfort for him, playfulness for him. So that's maybe something I don't emphasize enough in the book, but like there was always joy. There was always, because he was a person who was attracted to light and attracted to joy and attracted to love. So I do think that's how he coped, because you think, how did he cope with being who he was in this world, you know, and all of that, the trauma and everything we've just talked about. And like, you know, like I've always said, I can just imagine, now we understand why he wanted us around him all the time, especially out in public, because he literally never knew who was looking at him just being like, oh yeah, it's Michael Jackson, and who was thinking like the most horrific thing about him. Like he never knew that, you know, and that none of it was his fault. Like that's because of evil people in the world. So you kind of think, how did he, like, I can't even begin to imagine. And I feel like I've been through terrific trauma, you know, because of losing him, but like what he went through, it's on another level. I can't even begin to imagine dealing with that. I feel like I'd just hide away in a hole, because it's not like he could just move to another city. And then, like, you know, if you committed like some terrible crime was already all over the news in your city, you could move to another city, you could move to another country, you could change your name, you know, there's so many ways you could deal with it if you were like, let's say, falsely accused of something. Like he didn't have that option, you know, no matter where. He could go to like a village in China or a city in, you know, Australia, or anywhere he went. Like he's fully recognizable, and everyone's heard that story. Everyone in the world has heard that story, and there are people who will believe it and people who won't, and he never knows who. And so, you know, I don't know, I went off on a tangent, I know. But it's just talking about how, like, I think he lived with that, was laughter, joy, you know, having a sense of joy and a sense of humor. Yeah, a lightheartedness, actually.
Sometimes laughter is the best medicine.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I also believe that he got, you know, he kind of like pulled himself through the whole dramatic stuff and the traumatic stuff, because he knew that he would see all of your faces like right outside. Yeah. And he would feed off of that energy. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And you guys, like I told you personally and privately, like you were the representation of every single one of us who was not able to be there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we all were, and I think it's part of the reason I talked about destiny. I mean, I don't think it was just my destiny. I think everyone who went to him, it was obviously theirs too, you know, and I think that's the reason in a kind of higher level was like, he needed that. He needed that energy on behalf of all the people who couldn't actually be there in person, but felt that way, you know, and we're trying to putting that energy out there. But, you know, he also would talk about like, he could feel that energy even from afar. I mean, he was highly intuitive to the point of being psychic, like what we would call psychic. I mean, I think we all have that capability, but Michael was just, you know, again, because he was such a pure energy, he was so intuitive. So I think he felt that love from afar as well. And, you know, part of the reason we were there was to convey it in person through words and actions and smiling faces, you know, however we could. We were just lucky, you know, to have that opportunity.
Definitely. Okay, so we have from MJ fan TJ61. Did you know of or suspect any physical or verbal abuse from the people surrounding MJ towards the end?
So not at that time did I think there was anything resembling abuse. You know, obviously, like we've talked about that conversation we had on May 29th when he invited a small group of us into a studio and confided in us that he wasn't happy with the schedule. And he said this now almost famous quote is, he said, "I'm only one man," which, you know, speaks volumes really, and suggests that he really was feeling the whole weight of the world on his shoulders and he had no one to help him carry it. So at that point, definitely, you know, immediately we were all concerned that, you know, why wasn't he in control? And so intuitively I felt, well, there's got to be like a pressure around him to do things a certain way that are not to his liking. And I felt like there's maybe a culture of disrespect around him and of not recognizing that he's the most important person in the room, that he's the artist, he's the star. He's the reason people are paying like upwards of $1,000 for tickets, which I'm sure he had absolutely no idea about it. Just like he didn't know the arena was seated. I'm sure he didn't know that tickets were going directly to what we call ticket touting agency in Europe, like a resale agency, and are going for like thousands of, if you wanted to sit in the front row, that'll be $3,000, please. You know, you would have had no idea. And you know that Michael was only getting like a portion of the $100 like face value, probably a tiny portion of that, and all the rest was going to all these, you know, other interests. So all of that I understood at the time. That like, and then as his health deteriorated, that's where it's like, what, like, why is nobody helping him? And you hope somebody was, you know, we didn't know, but we had the feeling like no one is even like recognizing that he's in trouble, that he's not well. Why is it up to us? Like, we're just fans, you know, as people like to remind us, you're just fans. So why is it up to us to intervene when we see that, you know, his health is deteriorating, his psychological well-being is so obviously deteriorating? So I would say at that point, I would have just thought there was a culture of, like I said, disrespect, a lack of caring, like a callousness, you know, and people putting their own interests first. Now, in retrospect, with considering everything that's come out since, like, of course, I think there was abuse, there was bullying. There definitely was a culture of bullying around him. Disrespect to that point of being bullying. I think some of it was very overt. Some of it was probably less so, or wasn't necessarily bullying, but people putting, you know, being arrogant and egotistical and trying to force their artistic vision on him. I mean, have you seen the clown clothes they wanted him to wear? And he didn't want to wear them. And he had to go behind their back, which we didn't know at the time. Only know in retrospect, he had to go behind their backs. And we actually saw when Michael Bush went over there to his house, he was having meetings with Michael Bush behind the backs of the This Is It organizers, because he didn't want to wear what they wanted him to wear. He wanted to wear his own costumes, like the costumes he was comfortable in, that, you know, Michael Bush had been designing for him for years. So I remember one evening, you know, when anyone would pull up to the gates of the Carlwood house where Michael lived, of course we'd like nosy in, like, oh, who is it? Is it anyone we know? And so we saw one evening, like, oh, it's Michael Bush. Oh, cool, you know? So he went in. And so at that point, there was a cover over the gates, but there were like slits in it. Like there were gaps in between. So we could look through the gates and like see into the living room on the ground floor. And so I remember on that evening, we were like, oh, let's see what Michael Bush is doing. And like, we peered in, hoping to see a costume or two. And we saw like the rack of clothes and Michael Bush like picking things off the rack, obviously to show Michael. We couldn't see Michael, but obviously that's what he was doing. And like, that's all come out later. It all came out later that this was a meeting behind the backs of the organizers, because Michael wanted to be the one to decide what he's going to wear on stage. Like, hello. So, I mean, like, that's another example of people imposing their artistic choices on him when, like, you don't get to do that. Like, he's the artist. I also remember hearing that, like, the ceiling underneath the stage, that they were building the stage, and, like, it was really low. And he had to like duck down all the time and like was banging his head and he was uncomfortable. I guess they built some replica of it or whatever, you know. I don't know how accurate these stories are, but I did hear that around the time of the trials. But again, it's just like another illustration of like, he wasn't happy with that, but no one cared. No one cared that he wasn't happy with it, and no one was doing anything about it. And like I've said before, I wish that he'd had a manager or, you know, a life partner or whatever to just go in there and put people in their place and remind them who the artist was and stand up for Michael and defend him. And again, it's an example of people taking advantage of his vulnerability because of his confidence being so knocked because of the trial. It's all of that. The worst thing I ever heard in terms of, or one of the worst things in terms of how people were treating him, there was an email that came out again around the time of, I don't know which trial, there was so much back then, and I didn't watch any of them, by the way, so, you know, a lot of things I would just like hear from friends or whatever, but one, and I remember checking this out later to like make sure it was true, and it was. So someone who was going to meet him, someone connected to This Is It, was going to meet him in his living, like in his home in Carlwood, and they wrote an email about it, and they called him like F-R-E-A-K. They referred to him like, they said, I'm going to see the F-R-E-A-K today, talking about Michael. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think
that is disrespectful.
That is so disgusting. Like, what a piece of garbage. I mean, this is the person who's making you rich. You know, it was some financial interest in the tour. He's the one who's making you rich. You're okay with that. That's fine. You don't care if the FREAK makes you lots of money. But like, oh my God, like you're going to go in his home, like this most sacred space where he lives with his children with that kind of attitude, to think that piece of garbage went in his home, probably like shook his hand and sat with him, when how many millions of people would like, you know, give up 10 years of their life to have a moment with Michael. So that honestly like enraged me. So when you think about that kind of like vile attitude around him, and you just don't know how widespread that was, you know, but it was there. And I'm not saying obviously it wasn't everyone. I'm sure there are people, most people probably within working on This Is It, like respected him, maybe loved him, even admired him as an artist, you know, were, you know, very respectful to him. But there was that culture of just callousness, disrespect, self-interest that, you know, makes me sick. It makes me sick. And I had no idea at the time that was going on. Wow. You know, I mean, my friends and I, we would have lost our minds if we'd known anything like that was going on.
Same here.
Yeah.
We all would have.
Yeah.
We would be like,
seriously. Yeah.
Hold my earrings, get the gloves on, let's kick some butt.
Seriously, we would have been like, okay, we're gonna kidnap you and take you away from all these disgusting
right.
Like, seriously, no.
Mm-hmm. That's terrible.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's really disgusting the way people talk about him and said them horrible things about him, and then sit up in his face and act as if nothing and acting normal, as if they weren't disparaging him behind his back.
Yeah. And like people who never even, it's like if someone meets you and spends time with you and decides like they don't like you and talks like crap about you, whatever, okay, whatever, like you didn't connect. But like this is someone who doesn't even know him, never met him, you know, who's like, and is about to meet him and make money from him and speaks about him like that. Like that, I mean, it says a lot. Obviously it says everything about that man and nothing about Michael. You know, that's a reflection of who he is. It's nothing to do with Michael. So.
Yeah. Okay, so we have another question from Mia. What was one memory with Michael that you'll forever cherish?
Uh-oh, not another one.
Another one of those.
One memory.
Everybody wants those memories.
Oh my God.
They want your memories, Talitha.
I know. Oh my goodness. It's, again, I'm going to probably disappoint and say it's everything, because it is really everything, right? You know, it's a whole story, beginning to end, tragic end, but it's all of the nuances. I mean, you know, I cherish the memories that took place even, you know, before I even met him, like listening, you know, getting the History album for the first time and listening to that for the first time. My God, like that was an incredible experience. Listening to Invincible for the first time, or seeing a new video. Remember all the hype around the release of Black or White? And, you know, God, it was like nail biting. And then it finally came. It was like the most amazing, endless video that went on and on. Like you thought it was done, and then it was like, oh my God, there's more, yay, you know? So, and all of that, you know, like back then, I mean, video releases were an event. Album releases especially, but also even like video releases, you know, you knew the date, the time. Like I just remember having like get-togethers with friends. They were like, oh my God, like In the Closet's coming out and you'll get to see it the first time. We all want to be there, and like all my friends inviting me, and like, you know, having a party around this video being released. So, and like, so I'm sure if you read the book or, you know my story, you'll probably think all the most cherished memories are me, you know, spending time alone with him, or, you know, whatever, being hugged by him, or him sharing something beautiful. And like, that's true, but it's also like not, because I wouldn't give up a single memory of him. You know, I wouldn't give up a single memory of him. Like also being from Barry at a history concert, like, wow, that experience is so precious to me. And especially now, I know so many people who, even if they're around in LA, they never got to have that experience, you know? So that's so precious, like being inside Neverland. I mean, it's impossible to pick one. It's impossible to pick 100 memories that are the most precious, because they're all connected, you know? They're all a part of this evolution, like evolution of myself. I mean, some people have talked about my book in terms of being like a coming of age story. Like, it is my life on paper in a certain way, you know. It's like it's this theme that ran through my life, and obviously is, you know, had a huge impact on me. So you can't just take one thing and say, well, this is the memory. It's like it's all precious, every part of it,
right?
Everything. Yeah.
Okay, and we have the last one from viewers. This is from Natalie.
Yes.
And she says, what did it feel like to be in MJ's presence and experience his aura? You kind of already like explained it before.
Yeah, I kind of have already explained it. That's true. Yeah. So everything I've said, you know, the heavenly feeling of that, the pure energy around it. Also like being with him, and, you know, whenever he talked to you was like, whenever he looked at you with his beautiful brown eyes, because, you know, it was a different experience. If he came out wearing shades, it's still Michael, it's still amazing, you still feel the energy. But man, when he came out without his shades on, like, I'm like, wear a mask, wear 1,000 masks, show me your eyes, I want to see your eyes, because they were like spellbinding. You know, honestly, you looked in his eyes and you just saw his soul, you know. So, I mean, his eyes are just and people talk about that, like how beautiful they were, how soulful, but it's very true. And so there was like, when he had his shades on, you did feel like he was hiding a little. And when he didn't, you just like felt like, wow, you know, he's revealing himself in this way, and like you're connecting with him just a little bit deeper. So seeing his eyes was always like, made it extra special. Especially when he looked at you, and he was looking in your eyes and you're looking in his. I mean, there's a picture actually that I really love. It's in the book, and it's you know, one of the paparazzi pics where he's going into the Bel Air, and you can't see, in the photo, it's actually of the back of him and the front of me, like you can see my face, and I'm looking in his eyes, and I just have like this expression of like pure joy in my face, you know, and like it's like that just captures that feeling in that moment of like looking at him and having him look at you, and such a beautiful experience, you know. Also, they'll say like there was just a disbelief always, you know, like there's just a part of you that's like, I can't believe this is happening. You know, there's a part of you that is that like young girl, like who was, I mean, you know, Michael to me initially was like the figure on every single poster in my bedroom, because it basically was just plastered with images of him, the walls and the ceiling and the door and the light switch and the lamp and everything, the duvet. I had a duvet cover, bedspread on with his image, you know, I had the dolls and oh God, like everything was him. And so I grew up in that, like that was my first experience of him, like so many other fans. And like to then find yourself in his presence, him talking to you, sharing things with you, laughing, or, you know, whatever it was, like there was just that part of you that's like, I can't believe this is happening. This is Michael Jackson. Oh my God, you know, like just disbelief. And I think I must have had that more than some fans, because like my friends would tease me about that. You know, I tell the story again in the book where one of my friends, like Talitha, nicknamed me Dory after the fish in Finding Nemo, because every time I met Michael, I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, like so like blissful. And she's like, it's like every time you've forgotten you ever met him before and it's your first time, you know, like I'm so excited like every single time, even though I'd met him more than anyone she knew. You know? So there was something in me that just didn't die. Yeah.
That is truly amazing. Oh, wow. Oh, man. It's been amazing having you come here today and chat with us.
Thank you.
We really thank you again, because, you know, so many of us have never gotten that experience of even getting to be around MJ or even see him live, not even just hang out with him like you got to, which is amazing. I mean, I always seen MJ as like the big brother. I said if I could have MJ as anything, he would be like my big brother. We would definitely be running around, being big kids. I'm definitely down to have a water balloon fight. Yeah. I'm definitely down for a water gun fight, all of that good stuff. Yeah. It's like, are you kidding me? I was like, plus I know California, it generally is hot out there as it is. So definitely we can get the water fight going. Like seriously. Yeah. Oh man.
That's definitely amazing.
But Dove, do you have anything else for Talitha before we wrap up the show?
Yeah, I actually have a little question, and I'm not sure if you're gonna be willing to answer or elaborate a little bit on it, if it's in the book or not. But like you described when he went to Green Valley Ranch Hotel and he stayed there, right?
Yes.
In Los Angeles, and it was very sheltered.
It's in Vegas. No? It's actually Vegas. It's just south of Vegas. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So he was in Vegas, and you guys kind of like magically met in a parking lot, like by the stars. It was written in the stars. I don't know.
It was.
And you know that moment was magical, and you left off there, and I was like, no, I want to know what happened.
Wait. So I tell that story pretty completely. So you want to know more? Like, I tell a lot of that story.
Well, it was kind of like you left off at the moment that you guys met in the parking lot.
Okay, have you in the book there's more though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So in the book it tells like what happened then, what happened
then.
Okay,
got you. Okay, don't answer it.
okay, that's fine. Yeah, no, it's there. Yeah, it was a very long conversation, and with anything I had to like abbreviate, obviously, and just like take the most interesting snippets or whatever, but there's quite a bit of that one. So
Okay, good. I was like, because when I was hearing that story, I was like getting to the moment and you left off, and I was like, no, why now? But it's in your book. Okay, good.
You must have read the excerpt in it. It was in a newspaper. So it's kind of a teaser.
Oh, okay. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. There's more.
Okay. So, and this is just a random question. Is there any way that there's a possibility to get like a autographed book by you or something?
Kind of. You're in Spain. Yikes! Ugh, that's gonna be expensive. Cause see, I don't have any copies of my book. Cause when people order them, Let's say they order them through Amazon. They're also in other stores, but I use 2 different like print-on-demand services. So depending on where someone order is, the copy is printed just for them and sent to them directly. So I don't have anything to do with like book sales. So I don't have copies of my book. So it's like, I did it for one friend, but she's here in the US, and she, it's someone I know. So it was like, she sent it to me, I signed it, and then I mailed it to her. So I can do that, but to Spain, it's like, it'll probably cost like $40 just to ship it, because our shipping costs are crazy from here to Europe. And I know from sending stuff to my family in Ireland, they're just insane now. They've gone up and up and up, So potentially, and I get asked that a lot, and it's like, not really. It's kind of awkward.
Okay.
That would be pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
Like really cool. Like we were chilling with Talitha, and I got her book signed. Like we are legit here.
That's too funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I asked you before, like if it was okay for me to share that poem that you wrote for Michael.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's called "Loving an Angel" by Talitha Linehan, and it goes like this. I remember being 13, seeing an angel on the screen. His face was beauty, his eyes were love. I knew he came up from above. I longed with all my heart to meet this gift of love. So pure and sweet, they called him Michael, a star, a king. He became my world, my everything. I wished, and my wish came true. The universe carried my soul to you, and though I see you 1,000 times, I'll never lose what's yours and mine. For deep inside, I'm still 13, peering out at this wondrous dream. I can't believe it, I'm so amazed. My life's a wonder, I'm in a daze. Look and see the love that's mine. This love reflects the light you shine. For in darkness you were there, you gave me hope. You made me care, in your presence there is no fear. And earthly ties all disappear. My inner child sprouts wings and flies. My spirit soars across the skies. I love you with a love so pure that through the ages will endure. My soul is yours eternally. You are my gift, my destiny. You are my angel, my sweetest song. You are to whom my heart belongs. You are my childhood dream come true. Thank you, Michael, for the wonder of you. That's beautiful.
That is beautifully written.
Thank you so much.
That's really.
I gotta give her a little applause for that one.
Thanks.
That was really beautiful. That was really beautiful.
Sorry.
You getting emotional over there, Dove?
I promise not to, but it's like, oh, it's so amazing.
I remember writing that so well. Yeah, I remember like sitting under a tree right next to Michael's home in Vegas in late 2008 and searching for that expression, you know, to just kind of sum up everything I felt when I was a young girl.
That was so beautifully written.
It's beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for reading that and sharing it.
You're welcome. Thank you for writing it, and thank you for loving Michael for all of us.
Yeah. Thank you for loving him and being there and doing so much amazing work, you know, hearing his name and defending him and just showing who he is, shining that light onto the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you've been doing a great job of shining a light on Michael as well.
Thank you.
And of course, this adds even more to how we feel about Michael.
Yeah.
This gives another in-depth look about Michael as a friend as well, being that you two were very good friends. So this lets us know what he was like as a friend. And I always wonder, I was like, how is Michael as a friend? I mean, you always picture it in your head.
Yeah.
But then you never know until you hear it. And then it's like, wow, he actually really is amazing as you thought.
Yeah. That's the thing. That's the thing. You know, they say never meet your heroes, right? But
seriously,
that does not apply to him.
That's one hero I wish I would have gotten a chance to meet for sure.
Yeah, I know. I wish that too.
Oh,
I wish that for every fan. And I know he said that if he had his way, you know, he would have had every fan come and stand before him, and he would have hugged them and talked to them and got to know them. It just wasn't like physically possible, you know. But it's like every fan wanted that, and he wanted that, and it's just like, why can that happen?
It's so crazy that though, like we're just regular people, and he would think of us like you're amazing, not me. You're amazing. Like he would make you amazing.
Feel so special. Yeah, you make me feel so special. Yeah, it's intoxicating.
It really is.
Yeah.
Oh man. So do you have any plans coming up as June 25th approaches? Because most of us fans usually create videos, collages, stories, or different works of something regarding MJ just to show our.
No, I usually hide under a rock on that day.
I understand that.
Try not to think about it too much. So, yeah.
Like we've been trying our best to do as much as we can when those dates come up, because we know that the MJ fandom, the MJ family, the Moonwalker family, you know, we all kind of crammed together in this little bubble where we just comfort each other, because we just feel that sense of sadness and things that, especially now that it's been going on 12 years that he's been gone.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like a long time to me.
No, it doesn't.
It feels like yesterday.
It's kind of like the same,
Yeah.
It really does.
I think it'll always feel like yesterday.
Even Dove and I, we had a moment where we were working on a friend's project where she's producing it. It's called My Michael, and we shared each other's audio. We had to write our feelings about, you know, how we feel about Michael personally, not about the artistry, but him as a person.
Right. Yeah.
And she let me hear hers. And she really got me, you know, bawling. I was like, why would you do this to me?
Oh, no.
was like, why did you do that? I was like, wow, this is so beautifully written.
Yeah.
And it sometimes, especially thinking about MJ and then him not being around anymore, and then hearing everyone else's feelings, especially his fans, people who are just like the rest of us who care about him just as much.
Yeah.
It really breaks your heart just to hear it. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we always make sure, though, we bring nothing but cheers and good vibes when it comes to MJ, especially when it comes to that date.
Yeah.
Even in June 13th, which is his victory day.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There's supposed to be a little march here in New York being done by a artist named Vixen, who's she's running it, and I'm gonna do the podcast from there. So I said, that's cool. Amazing. I was like, that's a great honor that you're doing that, especially here in Manhattan, New York. So I'm here for it. It's here in the city. I'm there for it. Anything for MJ.
Yeah.
I'm there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I saw a headline today that fans are asking for an investigation into Martin Bashir's interview with Michael. So that's fantastic. Fans are still doing so much amazing work and making a big difference. And so hopefully that'll happen, because like Martin Bashir, again, that's someone with blood in his hands as far as I'm concerned. That was a very evil player in Michael's life and in Michael's world. He was responsible for 2005 a lot. And he went in with that intent, and I haven't watched the documentary in a long time, but I remember how Michael was with him in Miami, and there was just that shift, because by then he knew that this man was going to twist everything. He knew he was correct, whereas he'd been open with him and he trusted him, and he was so horrifically betrayed. So I hope that all comes out.
I really do. I pray it does.
And that's the karma train I was talking about. It stopped at a couple of people that started with, and now it's coming down to Bashir, because here in Spain there's not much MJ movement, but when it's been talked about like on the news, I was like, oh, this is like big news. And he was like on the like a big picture of Martin Bashir like on the screen, and below it said that he's going to be investigated because he forged signatures. He started with Lady Diana, Princess Diana, and then of course he went on with Michael. Michael was like, oh, if Diana agreed, then he must be a nice guy.
Oh, of course, exactly.
Now Uri Geller says, I feel so sorry that I introduced him to him. And Michael just trusted, like, okay, since it's, it came from, let's say, a trustworthy person, I guess I can welcome him in my home. He met his children, like we were talking before. He sat at his table. He lasted there for 3 months.
Oh, what a disgusting human being! And then look what he went on to do. So disgusting. Oh, it enrages me. How could you do that? Like, this is a human being. And again, I understand people not grasping Michael's humanity if they've never met him and he's just kind of a caricature. But this is someone who spent time with him in his home, like you just said, with his children.
Yes.
Gross. I remember meeting him. He was with him in Berlin, and I remember, oh, look, this is a journalist. He's doing a story on Michael. How cool. And like, he seemed like such a great guy, and then look what he went on to do.
But nope.
Disgusting.
Very
that's what I'm saying.
Being.
He's going to get his. He's going to get his, trust me.
Yeah. He went in there with an agenda. He knew from the beginning what he was going to do. He knew. He knew. He's a master manipulator. Yes,
he basically continued what Tom Sneddon began. To be honest, he continued that. And I feel like an apology is not enough, but it's good for now. It's good for a start.
Yeah. But it's not enough. I mean, the damage is irreparable. No. It's irreparable.
No, but to actually see him in cuffs, and I'm being like a little bit maybe how people would say like mean or whatever, like seeing Martin Bashir in handcuffs in front of the camera and saying I'm sorry to Michael Jackson's family, clear his name, like I'm sorry,
and
then they can drag him to jail.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. But he needs to say more. He needs to say, like, it was all unfounded. I made something out of nothing, you know. And then Tom Snedden, who was obsessed with Michael and was a racist and a bigot and wanted to destroy him for years, latched onto that. And then the Arvizos, who were entirely corruptible, went along with Snedden, and it's all because of me. I want him to say that. I want those words to come out of his mouth, because that's the truth. That's the truth.
And Diane Diamond, whatever her name is, that's another one.
Yeah. And Nancy Grace as well.
Yep.
Yeah. All these people.
Yep.
Gross.
I don't like to judge anyone, but disgusting human beings.
Yeah, disgusting human beings, you know?
I'm sorry.
It's a fact. They're evil. They knowingly went after him.
Yeah.
Really
knowing he was an innocent man. It just didn't matter. It didn't matter. It was all for ratings and money and racist agenda.
Yep.
It's clear as day. We know it. So we're gonna like say it as it is, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. But there's good coming out of all of this. Of course, it's unfortunate that he's not around to see it, but at least we get a little bit of that piece. Like, we're finally getting somewhere. Yeah. Like, we're really, you know, the fight wasn't for nothing. Like, we really feel like something is happening, and that's big. That's major. Yeah. And we here on the MCP, we will definitely be celebrating that. The day that all of these people go to jail or whatever, we'll be celebrating.
Seriously.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, we thank you for joining us today again, Talitha. We really thank you for joining us, and it was an amazing chat having you come here on the MCP. You answered all of our questions, our viewers' questions. I know some of you wanted to know what that energy was like, but like she said, the energy is indescribable. It's no way to explain that. So just imagine the greatest thing you could ever picture in life that you always wanted, and you got it. There you go.
That's it.
But yes, thank you again for joining us today on the podcast. Is there any business venture or anything you have upcoming that you want to share with the viewers before you go?
No, there's nothing.
Any social media, anything?
I mean, if you want to join my social media, please come on over and do that. Just go to michaeljacksonandme.com, and you scroll down, you'll find the Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram links. So I'd love to hear from you. You know, just like reach out and let's connect, and hopefully see you online real soon.
And I'll definitely be posting her social media contact information as well in the description box of the podcast. So that way you guys can also get to her directly. And if you guys have any questions, you guys want to order her book, well, let me put it up on the screen real fast for those of you who didn't see the cover just before we run. So be sure that you get this book if you haven't gotten it already. Like I said, mine will be here Wednesday. I already have the ebook. But I said, I want the hard copy edition. So
because, you know, you get the hard copy and you can really appreciate the design of my beautiful, amazing friends who adore Michael as well. The graphic designer, Iris, got to give her a shout out. And my artist, Ariel, who did the 2 drawings in the book. So, yeah, if you can, if you love ebooks, that's cool. But if you're open to getting the hard copy, I think you really get to, like, experience the design of the whole thing, which is kind of part of the story. So I love it.
It's a beautiful cover.
Yeah. Thank you, Iris.
Yes.
Yeah, she's amazing.
And the website that you just mentioned, like the michaeljacksonandme.com, is also where they can purchase your book. The links are like
it has links
below,
to
right?
everywhere. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it in Barnes and Nobles. I can't remember the name. What's the name of the big one? In Waterstones in the UK. So some major retailers in most countries. And actually, as of this weekend, I think it was Friday, you can now buy the hardback on Amazon in Australia. So up until this point, Amazon didn't have a printing service in Australia, so you could only buy the ebook there, but now you can buy the hardback as well. The hard copy, so the paperback.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah. Anyway, all the links are there. Everything you need is right there if you want to purchase the book or you just want to connect, whatever you want to do. And I'll be putting this up there as well. once it goes live.
Thank you. We appreciate
amazing.
that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is amazing.
Talitha.
It was fun. It was so beautiful to connect with you too.
Yes.
I love what you do. Keep it up. Keep up the amazing work. And it's wonderful.
We'll
we need more people like you in the world for sure.
Thank you. You as well, Talitha.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, guys, and that wraps up this episode of the MCP, the Moonwalkers Chat Podcast, and we thank our special guest author, Talitha Linehan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was amazing chatting with you.
Thank you. Likewise.
All right, guys. So if you enjoy this podcast, make sure you comment down below, hit that like button, and subscribe. Much love, everybody. And we are out of here.
Yes.
Bye.
Peace, MCP.